introduction. So my name is Puey. I'm CEO and co-founder of Airbitz. And for those that actually raise a hand, how many people here? Because we haven't had a focus. Our company's had a definitely focus more in the U.S. And so I can understand if a lot of people overseas in Europe maybe haven't heard of or have used our products. But who here has used or has heard of Airbitz? So about half the crowd. Cool. So since you raised your hands, for everyone else, I do have some cards. If you are new to Airbitz, we'll donate a little bit of Bitcoin to you guys. You can install the app and sweep a little gift card of a little bit of Bitcoin into your wallet to give it a try. So what is Airbitz? Just to kind of rehash what we've been doing for the past couple of years, most people do know us as a Bitcoin wallet on iOS and Android. And our focus in the wallet space, because there are a lot of wallets, our focus in the space has been to drive a very, very familiar user experience for securing keys, for logging into a wallet, for utilizing Bitcoin. The goal being to try to eliminate a lot of the kind of crypto aspects of Bitcoin, make it feel much more familiar to people, make it feel like you're just logging into a regular website or application. But what I'm going to talk to you today about is single sign-on, and this is a functionality, a piece of functionality that we're trying to drive into the general blockchain space, not just for Airbitz, our mobile app, but for the entire growing ecosystem of blockchain applications. So single sign-on for blockchain applications is what we're going to talk about. But first, to start off with the security model that has motivated this entire aspect of technology that we've built. So this is nothing new to most of you, right? So that with the advent of blockchain technology, we now require private keys, and these keys authenticate to the value on a blockchain. They're a way of authenticating to this database, which says, I own this block of value inside of this database. And these keys are long and intimidating. They look roughly like that line of random numbers and letters at the bottom of the screen. And so conventional wallets in the space require users to do things that are relatively unfamiliar. This one user experience for creating and backing up a wallet requires people to write down a random, I think it's about a 15-digit code, plus save a PDF onto their computer. And they can't lose either. They can't lose the password, can't change the password, and can't lose the PDF. This is probably the most familiar to people, especially for Bitcoin wallets. This is a 12 or 14-word seed, which represents the private key. And that also can't be lost. That has to be written down, stored in a safe place. Here on the screen it says, stored in a secure place, which is a safe or locked cabinet. So that's doable. It's not terribly hard, but it's incredibly unfamiliar to someone that's just trying to use an app and wants to send or receive money. And so the combination of these challenges are what we call unfamiliar, intimidating, and unforgiving. And that's like the three pillars of, holy, how are we going to get anyone to adopt this technology if you've presented people with all three of those. This last one is another example, and this actually comes from one of our partners that utilizes Airbitz. And here you get this giant blob of text at the very bottom of the screen, in addition to a password that a user created in the sign-up process. They have to take that giant blob and then save it off somewhere on their computer and not lose the password as well that they created and not be able to change the password. So once again, unfamiliar and pretty intimidating. And this is a pretty standard process in a lot of Ethereum apps. This is a similar format to what a lot of them use. So once again, this combination is pretty challenging for users. And maybe if this was in just the early Bitcoin era, where all we were doing was dealing with one or two wallets that held all of our money, that wouldn't be too bad. But imagine if our vision for adopting blockchain tech really comes alive, where we're using blockchain for insurance, we're using a blockchain app for e-commerce, we're using a blockchain app for prediction markets, which are kind of an aspect of insurance. Plus we're using one for just transactional, just sending and receiving money. So as we grow the use case of blockchain apps, these could become the new websites that we log into. And having to do this for every single website or application starts to become so daunting that it's nearly impossible for the average user, and there goes any hope of adoption. And so what's one solution that we could go down? Well, we could centralize the keys. Just put them with a trusted third party and trust that they're going to host our keys properly and that it won't get compromised. But we know what this model has done. We've done this already in the Bitcoin space with exchanges and hosted wallets. We know that there's many weak points to attack, and one of those weakest points are the people and the trust that you have to have in these third-party providers. They have clear access to these keys, and they're motivated because of the aggregation of funds and value. They're motivated to attack that and actually take advantage of that trust. And so we've seen this happen over and over again. When we aggregate the value into centralized services, the hacks occur both inside the blockchain space, obviously Mt. Gox, Bitstamp, Bitfinex, and even outside of the blockchain space with conventional companies. In the US, Home Depot is a large merchant that got hacked for, I think, 50 plus million accounts of credit cards from people. So definitely a huge incentive, and these keep going on, and we hear about these hacks over and over again. Since we don't fundamentally think that this is a good solution for securing blockchain keys. So what's an answer to this solution? One answer is what we call edge security. And it is the core concept of not relying on enterprise security, not relying on central servers, but taking data and securing it first on the end user's devices, securing it at the edges of the network, edge security. Encrypting that data such that only the end user can unlock that data. And the beauty of this is not only does it make it harder to hack, because now you have to hack each individual device one by one to get the aggregate of the system. But it also lowers the reward from hacking because you only get whatever device you are successfully able to hack into. So this is not just security by technology, this is security by game theory. Right? You're inverting the motivation to hack the system. And this is what we're pretty excited about. And this really is broader than just the blockchain space. We can apply this to just personal data. And so this is effectively what Airbitz has been building inside of our wallet, is a platform that takes data, such as keys for digital currency, and it automatically encrypts it such that only the end user can unlock it. It automatically backs it up because the user is sometimes their worst enemy. Automatically backs it up so that if they lose their device, they're secure. Automatically synchronizes it. That way you can feel like you're just logging into a cloud app. You don't have to worry about where is my wallet. Is it on this device or that device? Well, you can log into multiple. Revision control. This is an aspect of security too, because inadvertent changes in your data can be quite a pain. So you can roll back inadvertent changes. Two-factor authentication baked into the platform. And then this is a big one, the last one, which is why I bold it. We're the only platform that gives you actually a lost password recovery option that's fully private without supplying any user information to us. So that we don't see an email, we don't see a phone number. And all of that is with the familiarity of just simply a username and a password, what people are very familiar with in logging into websites and apps. But taking that another step forward is what we've just recently launched, which is what's called Edge Login. So this is the world's first private encrypted single sign-on experience, and it works great for blockchain applications. A couple of these logos here on the screen are actually launched partners. So Augur, we announced a partnership with, and that's actually launched. People can use it today. Use Airbitz to log into Augur, which is still in testnet. It's not fully deployed. They can do that, and we also announced a partnership with Wings, but we foresee being able to partner with a suite of different blockchain apps and non-blockchain apps to enable people to sign on with one account across multiple applications, but in such a way that only they have access to the data. They're never trusting a third party with that information. And so what does this actually look like when you do a single sign-on with Airbitz? So on one side of the screen is the Airbitz wallet, just on a mobile device. On the other side is actually a pre-release version of Augur, and you just simply get a pop-up that allows the user to create an account with just a simple username and password and a PIN, or simply scan a barcode. They just scan the barcode with their Airbitz wallet. They approve the login, much like you would approve a login with Facebook or Google, and then that's it. You see a bunch of, you see some spinners spin a little bit, and what actually is happening behind the scenes is instead of authentication, this app on your phone is actually creating an encrypted data store. It's handing the data store over to the client-side web application here at Augur, and then Augur is able to put keys into that encrypted data store. And that data store is then linked with the master Airbitz account that the user has in their wallet. So all of that is client-side encrypted. No one, not even the developers of Augur or Airbitz, see any of the data. It's end-to-end encrypted single sign-on, which is a first. Nothing's ever existed like this before. So a little demo, we'll see what it actually looks like. I've just got a recorded demo here. And let's hit play. So on the screen, this is actually Augur's site. This is running on our servers, augur.airbitz.co. And did I hit play? I don't see it going yet. Oops. Let me try doing that with my computer. Here we go. Okay, so User launches Augur. This is the screen that they get. They can go to the sign up and login button at the top right and click sign up with Airbitz, and they'll get this pop-up, which is actually Airbitz code. We write the GUI so that you don't have to. And here the user can sign up the conventional way, just entering a username, a password, and it checks kind of the difficulty of the password, makes sure the user supplies a decently good password. And then a 4-digit PIN, and that's used to re-log into the account repeatedly, more quickly than a full username and password. So when they click register, that is creating an encrypted repository on the computer. It's putting the keys in that encrypted repository and then backing up the repository onto multiple peer-to-peer servers, making sure that those keys are safe. That's why this takes a little bit more time than just simply logging into a website. Once the account's created, the user is given the option to set up recovery, which is the password recovery that I was mentioning to you earlier. Our recovery works by the user choosing 2 personal questions, creating answers for those questions, just like they're doing here. See it going through the process. And interestingly enough, the way this is architected is that Airbitz actually doesn't see these questions. We don't see these questions. They're encrypted before they come to us. And then the last nugget is for the user to actually email themselves. So they enter their email address and email themselves a token. So there's a random number, a random token that they email themselves. So the answers to the questions aren't good enough to get access to their account. You also have to have the token. This is actually inspired by multisig. It's split key security, just like multisig is for signing transactions. This is split key security for recovering your account. So it's kind of small, but in this email is a link that the user can click later on when they want to recover their account. And in that link is the random number and that token that's necessary. So once they've sent that email, that's it. They're done. They can hit done, and now they have an account that is set up and is password recoverable in just a couple of minutes. And all of it was relatively familiar, right? It's processes that people have gotten accustomed to in the past. And there's the account. The user's logged in. There's their account name. There's their address. I think it's the public address of their Ethereum account. They can click Manage Account, and this is more Airbitz UI for them to change their password, change their PIN, change their recovery, much like a regular website. And when they log out, if they want to log back in, their encrypted version of their account is actually saved in the browser, and they can just use a PIN to log in. That uses another split key mechanism to decrypt the account that's already on their device, so they don't have to enter the password over and over and over again. And they're back in, just with the PIN, and you can see there's their same address. Easy login. Once you've logged in once, you can easily log in again with just the PIN. But that isn't necessarily single sign-on. That's what a developer can incorporate just to give their app a much more fluid user experience to create an encrypted account. But if a user already has Airbitz on their phone, such as this phone here on the right, they can go ahead and do the sign up with Airbitz. And you saw that barcode earlier. They can just simply scan the barcode, which you'll see here in the demo. There we go. So just launch the barcode scanner, just like you're scanning a Bitcoin address to send money, but instead you're scanning a barcode to log in. So you'll see the approval screen, which shows what this application is and what it's requesting out of the Airbitz wallet. You hit accept, and here we go. It approves the login. And what happens when we're approving that login is it's actually taking and creating, like I mentioned, an encrypted repository, a data store, passing it over to the client-side Augur application, allowing that application to put keys into that encrypted data store, re-encrypting it, and then backing up those keys. And then once that's backed up, then you're quote-unquote logged in, like you are right here. So this actually was a pre-existing Augur account that was already linked with the account on my phone. And so when I logged in, it already had some Ether. These are all testnet Ether, some testnet rep, and some testnet Ether. So that allows me to take my phone and actually log into any browser by just scanning a barcode. And this account was created without having to enter any additional usernames, no passwords, no extra pins, no additional password recovery. I could have already done that on my phone and my Airbitz account. So that gives you an idea of what it feels like to incorporate single sign-on. And once again, this is single sign-on for one app, but that account can cross over multiple applications. It doesn't have to be Augur, it can be across multiple. And each one of those applications can have their own kind of data store that is unique to that application. And so in an encrypted way, they're shielded from each other. These applications can't necessarily share data unless the user allows them to do so. So I kind of mentioned this before, so I'll hash through it really quickly. How did this actually work? When you saw that barcode on the screen, that barcode signified, or it pointed to an encrypted communications channel, a temporary communications channel. It's like, here's how you talk to me, is what this client-side web app was saying. When that barcode was scanned by the phone then pulled out from that communications channel what it was that the app wanted. And the app was saying, hey, I want an Ethereum wallet and an Augur type account. The phone says, okay, well, do I already have an Augur type account, or do I already have an Ethereum wallet for you? If I don't, I go ahead and create one. If I do, I'm just going to pass it right back. I'm going to take that communications channel and embed a link to the pre-existing Augur account, pass it across the wire. Once it hits the web app and it reads it back, it says, okay, there it is. Now I can put keys in it or read keys out of it. And the act of getting access to those keys really is what it means to be logged in. Right. And so how does traditional OAuth work? How many people here use Facebook or Google to log into any other website than Facebook or Google? Oh, we're all guilty, you know. Right? It's just that much easier. It's so much better of a user experience. You don't have to create yet another account, another set of usernames and passwords. But how does it actually work? So OAuth, single sign-on, works like this. The website goes, hey, Facebook, please log in a user for me, and then tell me who it is. And then Facebook presents a user interface to the end user, say Alice, and it says, hey, Alice, log in. Enter your username and password and log in. And Alice talks to Facebook and says, okay, there's my login. Facebook looks at it and goes, yep, I think that's you, Alice. And then it says to the website, Alice logged in. Trust me, she really did. So why is this effectively a kind of a broken model with respect to blockchain? Well, number one, there's no actual data security going on. There's just simply a trust saying, did this person authenticate or did they not? But we're not encrypting any data, or we're not securing data or backing up any data. Plus, it's a fully trusted model, meaning if you compromise Facebook's servers, Facebook could effectively tell any of these servers that a user is authenticated, even if they haven't. So it's a fully trusted model for authentication, much like we have exchanges and hosted wallets being a fully trusted model for holding our keys. So there's no encryption, there's no data security, and you do have to fully trust third parties, which is why this model we fundamentally think doesn't work well for blockchain. How many people here are developers? Got one, two. Okay, I'll try to go quickly through the next few slides, which are a little bit more developer-y than the rest. But how would you use our SDK? So this is boilerplate stuff. This might look like a bunch of gobbledygook, but this is literally cut and paste this into your code. All this screen does is initialize the SDK in Airbitz. So kind of understand that that's all this does. You specify in here, a logo that gets displayed, and you specify a type, like an Augur or some other app, and then API key. And the next line, nice and simple, open a login window. That was the window that you saw that had the barcode, the username, password, the PIN, and that's it. It drives all of the UI to log in a user in any of the many different ways. A user can create an account, they can log in with a username, password, log in with a PIN, log in with a barcode, create an account with a barcode. And this is all a developer has to write, is that one line, just open a login window. And that then returns an account once the user actually is either logged in or creates an account. There's this account object that gets created. So what can you do with that account object? Well, here then you can create an encrypted repository to hold the keys. So you specify what type of repository. Here this one says it's an Ethereum repository. It then creates a random number, which is an Ethereum key, and creates the wallet, and done. Now you have an encrypted wallet with encrypted keys automatically backed up. And in there's a few lines of code there, but boilerplate, easy copy paste. And with just those few lines, you've got the entire user experience that I showed you inside of the app. And if the user already has a wallet in the account, you just simply go and grab it. Once that account comes in, you say, okay, well, get me the first wallet of this type. Get first wallet of type, wallet repo Ethereum. And then from there, you can extract the key and then use it as you wish. So with Airbitz and our security platform, we're not trying to be the blockchain SDK. Like, we don't tell you how to access the blockchain. We don't do the signatures and querying of the chain. Really, it's just key management. You take that key and you operate on it as you normally would. And in the future, there's going to be APIs where you're not just storing keys, you're just storing data. So we'll be exposing an API probably in the next month where it's just write this key value pair into the database. And that key value automatically is encrypted and automatically backed up. So now that empowers general applications to use this platform as opposed to being more specific to blockchain. That's really all the keys are, they're just data. And this is what we're really excited about, which is underneath the covers. This has always been baked inside of Airbitz. Before we launched this whole edge security, edge login, this is what existed. We kind of had the user account, the mobile app, and Bitcoin wallets inside of an Airbitz wallet. That's always existed, and these have always been separate encrypted repositories of data, separate from each other. And what we've done is we've expanded it now so that the ecosystem can have multiple types of application accounts, so such as an Airbitz wallet, an Airbitz app account, a Wings account, an Augur account, an OpenBazaar account, things like that. But more importantly, they can actually take the wallet repositories and share them between themselves. So as long as these apps know how to read each other's data, such as private keys, a user can opt to share a repository or a wallet between different apps. So you can imagine that if we integrated OpenBazaar and you wanted to log in and create an account by scanning a barcode, you can opt to just share one of your wallets with OpenBazaar, and now both apps can see the funds. You don't have to transfer back and forth. They just simply share funds by sharing private keys with just the scan of a barcode. And that's driven by the user. The user doesn't have to do that. If they don't, then these apps don't have access to each other's data. So it's much like when I'm supposed to have a huddle with my team right now. There we go. So much like when you log in with Facebook or Google into another app, sometimes it'll ask you for permission to access some aspect of your account. We can enable the same thing with arbitrary data storage. So these we kind of tag as wallets because that's kind of the obvious use, but these don't have to be wallets. These can be, once again, generic data stores. Imagine a healthcare application that stores healthcare data for the user and then being able to share that with a doctor's office with the software that they use. And these are all the different things that we think we can do with edge security in general. Private key authentication is a hot topic, and IoT can leverage that very easily, authenticating with IoT devices through public-private key. Financial application, the QuickBooks and the Quickens of the world, healthcare records like I had mentioned, and personal information, password managers. We actually are excited about seeing an application built on Airbitz that effectively just is a password manager. Personal notes and, like I'd mentioned, digital identity, being able to sign with private keys that prove your identity without giving up your identity to someone else. So and we think that this definitely is a suite that can grow. We'd love to replace the kind of conventional application centralized storage with a suite of applications that utilize edge security and actually provide us with a much more private and secure application world. And that's effectively it as far as my talk on single sign-on for blockchain applications. If any developers are out there interested, we have a page on GitHub, and so people are welcome to go and poke at it and ask us any questions. If you have any questions on incorporating it, it is still kind of what I call late beta. We have companies utilizing it, but it's still in a small amount of change. We hope to go full production by January of this year. And once again, for anyone that is new to Airbitz that hasn't tried the wallet, I have a few gift cards that people can grab to sweep into a new installation of Airbitz. In addition, one other thing that we're happy to announce is a side project, I guess you can call it a side project, that we had been working on, is enabling for especially U.S. companies an equity crowdfunding in Bitcoin. And so equity crowdfunding is a fairly new thing in the U.S. for U.S. companies, especially for non-accredited investors, people that aren't the wealthy 0.1%. It's only been enabled over the past year or two in the U.S. for U.S. companies, but for international investors, they've had to wire money in, which has been, for a $100 investment, which is the minimum for a lot of companies, that's easily $30, $40 wire transfer fee. We came together and linked up a payment processor, BitPay, with a funding portal, WeFunder, and most importantly, a bank who I personally know the owner of, to back the entire project and make it come together. So companies now can go and do equity crowdfunding for unaccredited investors and actually have investors pay in Bitcoin internationally. And we're the first company to launch on that platform. So we're effectively equity crowdfunding. We've got 2 more weeks in our funding as well. And so if that is of interest to anyone, check it out. It's right off our webpage, airbitz.co. Cool. Thanks a lot. Happy to open up for any questions.
Do you want to ask a critical question?
I guess it's recording. It's recording, yeah.
Maybe that question is not appropriate, but I'll try it.
Sure.
Can I use Airbitz also for point of sale payments for quick, convenient, instant?
So point of sale as in like a brick and mortar merchant accepting Bitcoin? Is that what you're referring to? So the question being, can you use Airbitz as a point of sale application for a merchant accepting Bitcoin, face to face?
Yeah, or how soon? Or
you can use it today. It's not what I would consider to be an ideal solution. So some of the reasons why it wouldn't. So here's me talking why not to use Airbitz, ironically, right? So I think it's a great app, and we actually have merchants in San Diego that are using Airbitz as a point of sale solution. It's what they choose. Now, one factor that might not make it ideal is Airbitz encrypts everything client side, and it is a full wallet inside of the device, including private keys. So for someone to go and use the point of sale, they'll have to unlock the wallet, like either with Touch ID, a PIN, or a password, which can be a little bit inconvenient, for the end user. In addition, some of the payment processors provide more thorough zero confirmation trustworthiness. So if you're accepting a payment and you're not going to wait for a confirmation, you're going to do zero confirmation. Payment processors have a suite of servers that are looking for various heuristics to say, can I trust this transaction even with zero confirmations? Whereas Airbitz is doing fairly basic, has a tip the network checks. So those are reasons why I think a payment processor might still be a better solution. What we would recommend, if you sign up with a payment processor, and I don't want to stomp on any of the best ones here in Switzerland, but in the US, BitPay, they don't provide the storage of your Bitcoin for you. You provide a wallet. So you can easily take your address from Airbitz, put it into BitPay, and receive your Bitcoin there. So that makes sense. Use BitPay as the processor. They're the ones that generate the addresses and check that funds have been received. But then they settle into your own Bitcoin wallet, such as Airbitz. I hope that answers the question.
It was way too much for me.
Oh, a little bit too much?
And everything.
So the answer is yes, you can, but it probably isn't the ideal solution. But yes, you can use, for a merchant. We can do things to make it more ideal, but it hasn't been our focus.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Michael, thanks for a very interesting talk.
No problem.
I like the solution, obviously, the edge security, I understand the game theory. Well, my understanding is that you still don't beat the general principle of trading off convenience versus security. Ultimately, the more convenient the solution is, you tend to lose security.
Mm-hmm.
How can you interact with that?
Got
More
it.
specifically, if I were to have a really, or if it was known that I have actually significant amounts, then I may become an interesting target again to get hacked. And if someone hacks my phone and also gets into an email, basically I'm done, right?
So if someone gets to your phone and to your email, then they're done.
Well,
I
if they
have
hack
to look
the
at
password basically, or the recovery, and then ultimately, is then able to have access over to my IP, right?
So the different attack vectors that they would need into your account, depending on what you've enabled. If you have not enabled anything, you just created an account right from scratch, just with a username and password, then they would need to have that username and password. That's their attack vector into your account. They would have to have exactly that. Or they would have to get access to your phone and then try to brute force your password. So even if they have your phone, they don't necessarily get into it. So malware that gets onto devices frequently just takes the data, shoves it off, and then tries to do something with the data. If that data is encrypted, that creates much more effort for them to actually get to it. Number two, you had mentioned I might be a target for attack, and you mentioned people might know that I'm worth something. So the key part of the zero knowledge platform of Airbitz is that we don't have any personal information stored with your account, so that people don't actually know who is what blob of data on our platform. So if you got full 100% access to our servers, you don't actually know whose wallet is which. Because there's no name attached to it, there's no email attached to it, and there's no phone number attached to it. And that's a critical piece of security. Privacy helps give security. To address as well the general concern of convenience versus security, that is an absolute balance, convenience versus security. The way we tackle this problem first is we ask ourselves, what are the biggest causes of loss of digital currency? So the number one by far, right, by far is people putting money on central hosted servers, exchanges. That's like huge up there. So we definitely want to avoid that. Second is people mess it up themselves. Like they are their own worst hacker. They screw it up because it's so unfamiliar, intimidating, right? And so the interesting thing about those two biggest causes of loss is that the third, far, far third, is that you actually get your device hacked. That's a distant third to number one and two. You just don't even hear about it. It's a very distant. So if you ask yourself that question, what type of security should you be applying? In that theory, then you should be applying security to try to solve the biggest problems first, the low-hanging fruit. And so the low-hanging fruit for us is, well, why do people put their Bitcoin on hosted exchanges? Because it's easy. It's familiar. It just feels like a bank. So why not build a solution that feels like that? That way people don't feel inclined to put it on an exchange. Number two, after exchanges, is they screw it up themselves. Well, we're trying to solve that as well. Make it as familiar and forgiving as possible so that they don't screw it up themselves. And then we still don't disregard number three, like your actual device being hacked. In some ways, we're more secure than some wallets that require you to do the more complex things like write down 12 words. Because many of those actually don't even encrypt your keys on your device. So if your device gets hacked, malware can rip out those keys and are in the clear, ready for them to take your money. So I won't try to point fingers, but one of the most popular Android, actually the two of the most popular Android wallets where you control your keys do not encrypt the keys on the device. So they're just sitting in the clear. So, to us, fundamentally, you should always store things at rest encrypted, and encrypted with a key that only the user has, and that the provider like Airbitz doesn't have. So hopefully that answers the question of kind of where do we sit in this trade-off, because we think about that all the time, and really try to find unique solutions to really drive a lot of usability and minimize the trade-off in security. Cool.
This is fascinating technology, and I'm sure you put a lot of effort in. But when we use it, we also need to trust that you are still around tomorrow. So can you talk about your business model, how you think you can stay in business?
So the trust in us is a trust in that the user experience for your user won't have to change, but it's not necessarily a trust in us that the user will lose their money if we disappear tomorrow. So I want to at least clarify that. So the user's data is still on their device, and especially in the case where they created an account on that device or logged in with a full username and password to get the account on that device, they can always unlock it even without Airbitz. So they can just simply put in a username and password and unlock the data with Airbitz servers being 100% down. And you can do that today on the Airbitz wallet. You can actually go and create an account, go into airplane mode, and then log in with your password, and it'll unlock your account, and your keys are right there. You can actually export your keys. So we try to keep ourselves out of kind of the critical path as much as possible. With respect to us just simply existing, what is our effective model? A few different models. So obviously from a B2B standpoint, we license out our technology. We have companies that are licensing the full stack, just taking our wallet, changing the functionality, adding functionality, removing functionality, license it and deploy it as their own application. That's the full stack, taking all of Airbitz. Now taking part of the stack, our SDK is a licensable SDK as well. And so we have a model of licensing that SDK in the freemium way, meaning it's free to use up to a certain amount of active accounts per month. And then once it exceeds that, then either the end users, if the end users have digital currency, would pay us, or the developer and the project would pay us. But we cap that. So we don't make more than 20 to 40K on a project, period. So once you achieve that amount of payment to us from a project, then it's capped. And then we monetize additionally from driving more users into our app through exchange of value. So whether they be on-ramps or off-ramps from fiat to digital currency, or exchanging between digital currency, which we haven't implemented yet, that's our other monetization opportunity. So quite a handful of different opportunities there. We're leveraging all the ones that don't defocus us too much. Right? We don't want to definitely defocus, but we have a lot of opportunity for monetization there.
Can you talk a bit about the competitive space that you're in? Who are your leading competitors?
Cool. Glad you asked. The closest that people think is a competitor is a project coming out of the Consensus Group in New York called Uport. Has anyone here heard of Uport? It's a couple people. So Uport, it feels like a single sign-on. It's a mobile app. You scan a barcode, and it kind of signs you into an Ethereum app. So the difference is Uport is not data security. They can't secure any data. It only works with Ethereum because it uses a smart contract to effectively sign you in. And it requires you to use their app every time your blockchain app wants to do any signature. Anytime, so if Augur were to incorporate, as an example, if Augur were to incorporate Uport, and they considered it and decided not to, every time a user in Augur wanted to make a transaction, they would have to pull out the phone and do the signature on the phone. But scan a barcode and approve it. Scan a barcode and approve it. Scan a barcode. Which to some people might not be that much friction, but to me I think that's way too much friction. And the limiting factor of it only working with Ethereum locks out a whole suite of other apps that just don't have all that smart contract functionality. So, and also the lack of ability to just do general data security. It just the signatures and nothing else. So that's what a lot of people think is our kind of competitive landscape. In the wallet space, there's a ton.
One company.
One project within a company. Within the space of just single sign-on, I mean, if you view single sign-on as our competitor, then the Facebooks, the Twitters, the LinkedIns, all of them effectively become competitors because we can do what they do. We can single sign into a completely centralized website because once you can secure keys, those keys can sign into anything, right? We can secure usernames and passwords. We can sign you into various sites. So we can compete against those sites, but we can also compete in the blockchain space, whereas the LinkedIns and the Twitters can't compete in the blockchain space. There are other companies that just provide kind of like mobile app security, encrypted security. Good Technologies is one company that kind of comes to mind. They just provide data security on mobile devices, but they don't have a single sign-on experience across kind of independent applications across different parties. So we've had trouble finding what we consider to be a concrete competitor, but things that seem like competitors, closest one would be Uport. Yeah, but we do think that they're significantly different. Yeah. Cool. All right. Oh, question for Lucas.
What's your opinion on segregated witness and what are the plans of Airbitz for segregated witness?
I think we're already on the list of saying that we're supporting, we plan to support segregated witness. We had Eric Lombroso, who's also from San Diego. Our company's in San Diego, California. We had him speak at a meetup at our office just last week presenting segregated witness. And we think that it definitely has promise to be able to scale and kind of clean up the blockchain in some ways by pulling a lot of the stuff that doesn't need to be on the blockchain out. And so we're in favor of it. Eric also fundamentally believes that there will be a need to just simply increase the block size. Which one comes first? We don't care so much. I think the core people care a lot about what comes first. The unlimited people care a whole lot about what comes first. We're a little bit more agnostic in that sense, but we do think both should happen. That's kind of our stance. The technology seems sound. I've gotten into a bunch of Twitter debates with people that hate the Bitcoin core developers, and so they write off anything that comes out of that group. We do think that the technology for SegWit is sound, and it should be deployed. And when it is, we'll put as much engineering effort as we have available to get it supported. Although we're dependent on other tech stacks that we're not in control of as much.
Do you have an opinion on the simple sign-on or the edge security of Hyperledger, sort of the IBM thing? Are you guys looking at that at all, or are you guys just focus on the public blockchains?
We don't just focus on the public blockchains. If you think about it, I had mentioned using public-private key authentication, like BitID, and those authenticate with just central servers. So to me, if you think private blockchains and using a private, securing a private key to authenticate with a private blockchain is no different than securing a private key to do an authentication onto a web server. So to us, what's really more interesting is securing the private key. What you do with it afterwards, we think enables a whole suite of new cool things versus, a plethora of logins and passwords and, third-party trust OAuth solutions. So no, there actually are private blockchain solutions that have come to us and say, hey, this is kind of interesting. We could use this, and I think it would be wise to have that deployed across even, say, a bank that uses a private blockchain and has 20 of their employees that need to authenticate with this private blockchain, maybe 5 of 20, to settle this once a day $100 million transaction. Yeah, they need edge security. So yeah.
Swiss Bank?
We haven't talked to Swiss Bank. If anyone here is from Swiss Bank and is looking at implementing private blockchains and needs key management, we'd be happy to chat. Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Very interesting.
Thank you very
Hope
much.
to see you again.
Yeah,
Maybe
hopefully in a year or so. Sometime maybe 2017. Maybe next year.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Hopefully so.
Okay, thanks a lot for coming. I made a reservation at this Ellen Bell, it's called. It's vegan, but they also have beer. So, hope to
That's
see
the
you
meat.
there.
The beer is the meat.